Want to leave. Didn't want to get out of the sandbox.
Okay.
All
Well, good
right, we
morning.
do.
Good morning. Hello, I'm Lucy Robbins, and welcome to the Reality Therapy Corner. This is a meeting that occurs the fourth Tuesday of every month to discuss and have conversations that are both interesting, educational, and stimulating about reality therapy. And each month we'll have a featured guest. And this month our featured guest is Gloria Cissé. And I want to introduce her. For many of us, no introduction is necessary because she's our regional representative to the board. Gloria is Dr. Cissé and has finished all that work that's necessary to make that happen. She's also an author. She's published several books, mainly on trauma and working with the children of abuse. But more importantly, and I want to read this because it's an important line, one of her most valuable quality world pictures is that she's the mother to 5, grandmother to 27, and great-grandmother to 4. Gloria is going to lead us today as our featured guest. So Gloria, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. For those of you who are in the Southeast, good afternoon. And for everybody else, hey, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope that everything in your life is going the way you want it to go. I really, really, really appreciate being a part of the Glasser Institute's work around all of the issues that we are trying to share with people. But primarily, I think,
Gloria, I need to interrupt. I'm sorry. Can you turn up your volume? You're coming out very light.
I don't know how to turn up the volume.
Or come closer to your mic.
Very infrequent that people tell me that I'm speaking too softly. I have one of the biggest voices. The volume on my computer. I turned up the that's the speaker. That's not, I mean, that's the
Yeah, you're fading in and out, so we're not hearing everything.
All right. What about now?
Pretty good.
It's a little better.
All right. Okay. All right. So I really am excited to be not only the Southeast region's representative to the board, but I am also the chair of the Diversity Council. Are you all still hearing me? Somebody just let me know if you don't hear me. And what we do on the Diversity Council every month on this, I think it's the second Saturday of the month, we have a conversation, a diversity conversation. And when we started doing that, I thought to myself, of all the organizations that I am a part of, the Glasser Institute decided that they needed to put up a place where there was a conversation about diversity that was open to anyone in the country. And I just felt honored. I felt honored, and felt very proud to be the person who was asked to chair the Diversity Council for the Glass. But in my conversation today, what I want us to do, and I really want this to be a conversation, it's not going to be, I don't have a
Leaving
PowerPoint.
Thursday.
And I'm going to ask everybody if they don't mind to mute your microphone unless you're speaking. It makes it that might help my volume issue.
Tell her
Yeah.
microphone. She wants us to mute the microphone.
I could. Oh, I'm not the host.
Hi.
Hey y'all.
How are you?
Robin, Sandy. How are y'all feeling today? Okay. All right. So, and I've asked lots of questions about this whole idea of diversity and Dr. Glasser's opinions and ideas around diversity, and I've read lots of things about it. But I'm going to tell you why I believe that choice theory the way that I understand and perceive choice theory to be, why I believe that it is the most appropriate platform for dealing or working through diversity issues right now in this at this time in the country. I really am when I see the cover of Glasser's book on choice theory, and it says choice theory, a new psychology of personal freedom. What I thought about in reading that, and every time I read it, I think about what that means for everybody, but particularly for people of color in this country, people who are marginalized. When we can teach people that they have the capacity to control their total way of being, then what we've done is given them an opportunity for freedom like you could never imagine. So I really appreciate being able, knowing, learning this theory, and then having an opportunity to practice it. And as I said, there is no PowerPoint today because I want us to have a conversation. And so the first thing, and Lucy is a part of our Southeast region, and she comes to our Southeast region meetings from time to time, but she helped us to create, actually she created for us to guide a conversation around choice theory, the book Choice Theory, A New Psychology of Personal Freedom, an outline. And probably the first or second question that she had on that outline, and I talked to her about this, and I told her that this is what I wanted to use to guide the conversation today. The first or second question, I think it's the second one, and we're still looking at the first part of the book, but it asks a question that I think is appropriate for us to discuss right here, right now, in this place. And that question is, what new information, excuse me, wrong question. The question is, how are the current Me Too, LGBTQ plus, and Black social movements improvements in human progress, and how can choice theory enhance these? So, I could tell you what I think about that and what my response would be to that question, but I would rather hear from some of you first. Who wants to go first?
Gloria, would you type that question into the chat box? Some people are having a real difficult time hearing you still.
Oh no.
Gloria, while you're typing, I'm going to do a little talking. When I wrote that question, I wrote it because I really wanted to know. I don't have the answer to it. I have some ideas about choice theory, but I don't have the other side of that question. I don't live in a marginal community or have marginal identification pieces. So I didn't have that information to answer that question. So that's a question I really want to know the answer to, or at least as a group here today, figure it out.
Lucy, would you mind repeating the question then, since you're very aware of it?
So she's
so to make
typing it in. She's typing it in.
I'm going to put it in the chat.
Okay, never mind. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I'm going to read it again so you can think about it. It says, how are the current Me Too, LGBTQ plus, and Black social movements improvements in the human progress, and how could CT, choice theory, enhance these? I thought I could kind of cheat and cut and paste, but it won't let me do that.
Yeah.
So
right in the beginning of
No, but your volume got better.
oh, maybe it's because it wanted me to, yeah, okay, sorry. I was going to be a little bit funny, but I'll leave it alone. Okay, I'm going to print it out so I can see it.
Just in the beginning of that book, Glasser talks about, oh, there, Wendell's holding it up. He talks about the lack of progress
Progress.
in human relationships versus technology. But
Mhm.
I saw these movements as a shift up in, or making a difference in human relationships.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And that, I think that was one of the things that really sparked my interest in talking about and thinking about choice theory as a framework to have conversations about diversity, because Glasser actually identified that there is, at the time, there was very slow progress, right, in human relations, and compared to the relationship, or the progress that we've had in technology. I mean, gosh, it's just amazing that the how we're not level. It is increasing, our relationships with each other, but compared to technology, it's almost as if we're standing still. So, and as a part of a marginalized community, I am, and that's one of the other things I wanted to introduce everybody to, and that's that idea of social location. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard of social location, but I've participated in some trainings lately where the facilitators start out by asking us to, if we feel comfortable doing it, to identify our social location. And so my particular social location, and I started, and Lucy helped me out by telling you that I have 5 adult children, 27 grandchildren, and now I have 5 great grandchildren. But my social location, it has to do with your ethnicity, what group you are a part of or identify with, your gender, your class, those kinds of things. And so my social location is that I am a woman of African descent who is the descendant of formerly enslaved people, who's very proud. I'm very proud of the fact, I'm proud of those people who died for freedom, for our freedom, and I'm very proud of the people who stayed alive so that I would be here. I'm very proud to be Southern. I am very proud to be Southern. I used to go to places, and I remember one time I was in San Francisco and lost on the BART, and I was asking for directions, and this woman's like, "Why do you speak so slowly? What's wrong with you?" And I said, "Nothing's wrong with me. I'm from the South," right? And so I was kind of embarrassed because that person did that. And then I'm like, why am I going to be embarrassed because I speak the way I speak? This is who I am. I love the totality of myself. So I am very proud of the fact that I am Southern, and that I am I am the person I am. And so I grew up extremely poor. My family was very, very poor. Uh, but now I'm considered middle class because of I own some property, and I have several degrees. So I don't know how that makes you middle class. I thought it was all about money, but okay, so what the heck? I am considered a part of the middle class, and I am okay with that. And even when I go back and I work in communities where there are lots of Black and brown people, I am not considered necessarily a part of the group because I don't speak the way other people speak. I own property. I have several degrees. But that's just who I am. And so this idea of social location and identifying your social location, for me, it when I sit in a room with people who are willing to identify their location, it creates an environment of
Okay,
safety.
this is for
And
Friday.
so,
This is city and you're gonna
okay,
do the other things
somebody's
as you go
talking.
ahead.
Yeah, I don't
But
know
the
who's
other
talking.
two,
So, Gloria, then our social location would be our our quality world pictures of ourselves.
Yeah.
And Glasser says those are the most important ones we have, of course. So it's the what in reality therapy, our social, it's the what or the who of us if we're looking at reality therapy then.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So you made me think though, Gloria, I said I wasn't in a marginalized group, but my heritage is Native American. My grandmother was a Native American. I don't know any more marginalized group around, I guess, but I don't I've never identified as that.
I would
So
like to point out too that women are marginalized.
That's right.
I've never thought of women as marginalized. I'm not going to accept that as a belief system for me.
I mean, whenever someone has to fight for their rights for freedom to vote, I think that maybe they became less marginalized over the course of history, but in the course of history, women have not had the choice to be as free as men have. And then some might argue the glass ceiling right now is something that kind of stops progress for women's growth too.
Mhm.
I think I typed that because I was typing really fast. I used to type 112 words a minute. I'm not quite that fast anymore. But I did type it in the chat so that y'all can see it. So I hope thank you very much, Jessica. You're right. And so what the important piece of this is the intersections or the intersectionality of all the roles that we play, right? And I thank you so much, Lucy, for bringing that back to our quality worlds, because in our understanding of who we are and how we progress through the world, we have to have we have to really kind of like a lot of things about ourselves, right? And we have to have these goals. We have to aspire to things. And so when we have those things firmly placed in our quality worlds, then it's easier for us to be able to do just that. So I made a plan to get trained in choice theory and reality therapy, and here I am. And I used choice theory as one of the theories in my dissertation. So I'm really there. So it's really important. It's really important.
Mhm.
So
Gloria, question, with your dissertation, did you get it published?
yes, I did. It's published on one of those websites, and I actually had to purchase copies for myself. So I ordered a couple of copies for myself. But yes, it is published, and it does list choice theory as and what I was looking at was an aspect of infant and early childhood mental health, and I compared anyway, I wanted to understand if mothers knew that they had the ability to influence their children's mental health, and so I used choice theory to help me make the point that we do have choices, and we do make those choices. We just don't understand that we're making them because our society has led us to believe that we have no power in a lot of ways. Okay, so anybody else want to answer or address it? Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Wendy.
All right. Well, with the appointment of Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court,
Mhm.
Barack Obama, double term presidency, more and more people of color, different groups we see on television as experts, as analysts, or what have you. It's interesting to see the names. They always put the names below, like we've got here. And the names are totally diverse. You know, Arab, the Hispanic, Latina, everything. And it's so exciting to see people make contributions and different perspectives and so forth. And so at one time I got to thinking, gee, we're making some progress here, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, we've seen a great amount of negativity and violence on the part of some other people. I've drawn this diagram just here. It's from the other, and there's technological progress. I joke to seriously say to people, you can walk out of the front door of an electronic store with something that you're really happy to get, you know, and they're, you know, let's say iPhone 11 or 12, and they're coming in the back door with its replacement. That's how fast it works. So technology keeps going. I think, so I have a T there, and then I put another line that's starting to go up, and I put a P on there just arbitrarily, progressive. There are progressive elements of the political parties. There are progressive elements just in general. And then I put a C on this other line that I think is going down. And well, we see legislation, we see people, Roe v. Wade going away. We see hints of people wanting to take away LGBTQ rights. Even people are concerned about same-sex marriage being on the chopping blocks, possibly. And there are people that would want that to happen and take us right back. So at the moment, that's my best thinking on this. Okay.
Awesome. Many of us are counselors, so I just want to drop this in here too, that the American Counselors Association mandates that counselors have a certain amount of training in diversity. So we should as a body be making sure that we can help or at least kind of toss our hats into the ring and offer conversations or training for individuals who have to have this understanding or this learning, offering trainings for them on how to use CTRT in the diversity world, because I think it's absolutely appropriate. I think it's absolutely appropriate. Yeah.
Quite a while ago,
Uh,
I can't put a time on it, we added in the issue of ethics in counseling
mhm,
through the CTRT certification process.
mm,
And I believe it's in the website about making sure that instructors are including discussions about ethics and ethical guidelines
mhm.
and that sort of thing too. I don't know if we have it in our guidelines to say, let's all make sure we put something on diversity. If we don't have it, I would support that. I personally do, because a lot of you know I was a race relations instructor. I marvel, okay, just a quick little reminder, between the years of 1972 and 1983, I mean, this is generations ago, I did 500 race relations seminars as the instructor for 10,000 people in the Air Force. That was my job every day for a decade. And phenomenal progress took place in the social climate and the behavior of people publicly. They could still think and still think on their own. They could even say things they wanted to trusted friends. They quit saying and doing lots of stuff publicly, and the military was way ahead of everybody else. And then today I see public organizations or businesses, they're going to have a diversity seminar for 2 hours. And it's the same thing we did 45 years ago. And so to that extent, you say, is that progress or is that back down again? I don't know, but it's just, I wanted to give a plug anyway for it. And that wasn't just the Air Force, that was the Department of Defense.
But the difference, I think, and the reason is that we still, even then, right, when we were making all of these laws and these rules, we were using external control psychology. And so we were trying to force, diversity and issues of diversity down people's throats. That doesn't work. Punishment doesn't work. We know that as choice theorists. We know that that's not the way to get people to kind of come on board and learn these ideas and learn to get along. You can't mandate love, right? So the which again makes choice theory a perfect framework to have conversations around how to get along. So first and foremost, we recognize that the only person's behavior we can control is our own. So when we develop um, rules and laws that say that I'm going to say what you do with your body, then we're using external control psychology, right? When we develop rules that say that only certain people can live in a particular neighborhood, what we're doing is we're telling people what they can do without Yeah, we're trying to control another person's life. So if we were to do this, y'all, if we were to be able to imagine how to do this and make things work for everybody, we'd have to use choice theory. We'd have to stop trying to tell other people what to do. We have to understand that just because I say I want to be successful, that I want to live in a nice house, that I want to have the job that I want to have, it doesn't mean that I'm trying to take anything from you. That's the zero-sum game. If you've never heard of the zero-sum game, then if you got to learn about it, because the zero-sum game is what we're playing right now. There are people who think that if I get a degree, that means that you got to give up something. If I get a job, then that means you have to give up something. But from a choice theory perspective, what we do, and that's the solving circle, all over the place, solving circle, is we say we're going to work from a place of win-win, right? What you get is what you need for you, right? You don't want to live the same way I want to live. You want to have the same kinds of opportunities, but my goal is not to take anything from you. My goal is to simply make sure that I can eat and my kids can eat and my grandkids have a safe place. They can walk down the street without being afraid of dying. That's what I want, right? So when we get to a place, and I think the only way we can get there, is if we promote the idea of internal control psychology. If we promote the idea that punishment doesn't work, right? We need to use more of these connecting habits that Glasser identified. So it's not an exhaustive list, right? But we need to use more of the connecting habits to be able, so that we can be in a place where we can really get along with the people we say we want to get along with. We really have to work at doing things just a little bit differently. I want to address
I have
Lucy.
a comment. Can I interrupt?
Oh, certainly.
Great.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Diane and I'm in the Philadelphia area. But I grew up in South Louisiana, so I think we're a lot of Southerners here. But the original question,
Mm-hmm.
there was the discussion of choice theory being a framework to start conversations about diversity. So as I was listening to everyone and thinking about how do we develop, what is this framework? And then I enjoyed Lucy saying she hasn't experienced marginalization. And then you finished up with, for me, based on what, and the other woman, I don't know what your name, but you had said women are marginalized. But it was nice to hear Lucy say, for me. And I think that's the beginnings of that framework of the social location piece. I thank you for teaching me that today. I didn't know about that, so I'm going to use it and try to understand other people's social location. But I think as building that framework, being able to say, for me, I didn't experience this, but for this other woman, yeah, marginalization as a woman is a big thing for me. So we start that conversation of the uniqueness of each of these situations to us individually. For Gloria, your experience as a Black woman, and your ancestors and their experiences, and being grateful for those that fought for the freedoms that you've experienced today. That was like, wow, yes, to be grateful. All right, but then now to sum up, when we look at internal locus of control, when we look at the internal psychology, I feel it comes down to having courage or fear. Am I going to choose to have the courage to talk to Gloria about her ancestors and her situation? Am I going to have the courage to ask Lucy about what she meant by she's had a that she's not experienced these things, or courage versus fear. And I think a turning point for progress will be when we internally choose to have the courage, because I think we mostly choose fear. I can't ask Gloria that. Oh, I can't ask Lucy about her experiences with being marginalized as a woman or not being experienced. I think coming down to choosing courage at that base level over fear will help us start to have those conversations about diversity. Okay, I'm done. But that was
Wonderful.
something as simple as courage versus fear.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
It's
Courage.
an interesting concept because people who are fear-based need courage to do something. People who are not fear-based don't even know what that means.
Right. So how are we going to learn about diversity? How are we going to be better if we don't have the courage to say, hey, what is your social location? What is going on? What have you experienced? So.
And it's really interesting because, you know, fear is a really, really, really interesting concept. Thank you so much, Diane, for your summary.
Diane, I just wanted to lift up that's actually really amazing. Recently, I was reading a book by Brene Brown called The Gifts of Our Imperfections, and she actually talks about courage, compassion, and connection being the 3 pillars essentially that help us, like, you know, bridge the gap and kind of take like all of the things that we might view as negative to ourselves and then start living in a sense of celebration and joy in them. And so I definitely agree with that.
Cool. Yeah.
Can you say the other, it was
Go on,
courage,
Sue. Sue. Go ahead, Sue.
I'm sorry, courage, compassion, and
Connection.
connection. Thank you.
Y'all do know that she studied choice theory, right? Okay, I'm through with that. Go ahead.
Okay, I did have another thought or question or something. I'm agreeing with Diane, you know, and liking when Lucy said, you know, for me, what are the experiences that I have? It's just a worry though, because until more voices are in the mix, and if we're just all speaking for us and not as a group, not as, I don't want to say a majority, but not as a strong enough voice, if it's always about me and it's always about what I've experienced, I'm not sure we'll ever get change. So I'm not sure, I don't know where choice theory fits in that. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, that it's my perceived world. It's your perceived world, but there's got to be some sort of commonality and pattern to create a better quality world.
And I think that you bring up a good point, and that's the progress we're talking about. So we get more people coming into more women, let's just use women, or we get more people coming in saying, for me, for me, for me. Then we start the conversation. And then maybe Lucy says, oh, you know what? God, I didn't experience that, but I understand you better. I understand marginalization of women better from what you've explained. And then I think the group voice begins to be established. I mean, that's a good point. Is it right now, if it is for me, the progress is going to have to be escalating that to let's combine those voices for a group voice. I'm sorry, I think I interrupted.
No, I wanted to add to what Sue was saying and what Diane was saying is if we haven't experienced it, how do we share that in a way that the person that has doesn't feel, I don't know what word to use, bad, incompetent, or something was wrong with them because they did experience it. And can we ask the question, as in choice theory, is tell me more, share with me how that has affected you. And a lot of the women's group, well, I guess in both of them, the men and the women's group, I asked them internally, are you a victim? Are you a survivor? Like working with people that have been battered or sexually traumatized, or the Me Too generation, those that are willing to talk about it, tell me how that has influenced you. What choices do you have to be different? So when go back to Gloria's question, how could choice theory enhance these? Our self-evaluation questions could
Mhm.
definitely enhance this communication or this conversation.
Well, I don't know. What I'm thinking now is in my work life, I spend a lot of time facilitating groups. So, and I would come out of education. So I'd be facilitating a curriculum group, or I'm facilitating a group that is arguing with the parents or whatever it was. But so here was facilitation. And what I realized shortly in was my job as a facilitator was to listen for the patterns, all sorts of strategies and tools. But what I was listening for were the patterns of what people could agree on. And then where I don't want to use the diversity word, but where the disagreements were and where the disagreements were coming from. And it was always really interesting to watch, that how much people were more in agreement, and that very often it was the value systems that were getting in the way in terms of disagreements. It's like somebody valued attendance more than they valued kids. Somebody valued curriculum and passing this test more than they valued the kids' overall good health and happiness. But I don't know. Anyway, that was just something that I found, and I don't know if it's relevant here or not, but there you have it.
Yeah. And it is relevant. It's very relevant. I'm going to say that the thing I like about my experience, when Lucy said my experience, is that you're not negating the other person's experience, right? And so you're talking about your experience, but we are researchers. We are, learned, people who are educated. We know that I can talk about my experience all day long, but until I compare it or I'm willing to hear what somebody else's experience is, I've done absolutely nothing, right? So if I'm going to be a good practitioner, I got to walk in here knowing what my experience is, but also understanding that mine is not the only experience. And then be willing to hear what everybody else's experience is. And one of the researchers I looked at, because I used hermeneutic phenomenology in my dissertation, but in learning about it, I learned that all knowledge is interest driven, right? So when we talk about, this is like an opportunity to light a little fire, right? Just to light a little candle. And then so the people who are interested in learning about how it is, that we can grow this idea or change the human condition will take that little flame and light the candle next to them, right? And so if all of us, how many of us are here? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If all of us in here talk to 5 people about diversity, what does that do for this in choice theory? What does that do? How many people have we reached? And those 5 talk to 5 more. We've done some really incredible work. We've really done some incredible work. Now, I wanted to say something else about how we have these conversations and and I'm sitting here looking at Bob Wobelding, and I'm looking at his 26, thinking about those 26 characteristics of good reality therapists. And one of them is to suspend judgment. How do we do what we need to do if we're not suspending judgment? How do we do that? Right? How do we get along with the person sitting across from us? And we understand that relationships are very important. 50% of the work that happens with the people that sit across from us is relationship driven. So if it's important for us to make good relationships, how do we do that if we're not suspending judgment?
Well,
My wife in Georgia and now in Florida has been a licensed professional counselor, and here in Florida they have the moniker of licensed mental health counselor.
Mhm.
And somewhere along the line, she developed or picked up from somebody a nice phrase that's very helpful to me when I see something and I catch myself with a little internal kind of like that. And instead of doing that, she says, say to yourself, isn't that interesting? The way the person's dressing, the different names we have on the screen here. And so if I can, even if I can just start doing that, it helps me along the road of being less judgmental, whether I can ever get to that or not. So that's helpful. Isn't that interesting? It's different.
Mm-hmm. And you know,
And
those are our quality world pictures. I heard somebody talk about beliefs and values and things like that. All of those are those quality world. They're based, and so when something bumps into my quality world, you know, and it doesn't quite feel right, and my scales go out of balance, then there is where I do the self-evaluation. I stop immediately and say that's one of the other reasons that the social location thing works so well for me, because then my 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 trauma triggers are kind of are soothed just a little bit. You know, they're just like, calm down, calm down. Everybody here is not here to attack you, you know, right? You know, so then so we really have, it really is important for us when when our beliefs are challenged, we have to think about, how come my belief, where did I get that from? So then it's still my work. It's not the other person's work. Where did I get that from? And then what can I do to get rid of it? Because it's not useful here. This is
there's
so
so,
much fun, y'all. Wow.
there's so many generic counseling and relationship uh, good principles that we can use in choice theory, counseling with choice theory, reality therapy.
Mhm.
And they're not unique here, but they're global to everything. And one of them that I learned over the years and practicing fairly well is the use of I statements rather than you. And this is, I'm on the tennis court and I say to my partner, you know, you got to cover that lob. You didn't cover that lob. You know, well, no. Well, that's like this, you know. And so I say, hey, listen, I'm coming in after I serve and I'm going to be way in here. I'm not fast enough to cover it when they lob over your head.
Mhm.
And I said, it would help me, you know, if you could play back a little bit rather than you're playing too close to the net. Yeah. And even the tone of voice starts to come out. So I statements and in the world of diversity and race relations, one of the things I picked up a long time ago, and people say something that's fairly racist or insensitive or what have you. Sometimes I would say, well, you know what? When I was in high school in New Orleans, I kind of thought that also. The world was racially segregated, and those thoughts came into my head. They were in the world. And I used to have some of that same idea. And then I met somebody. I was roommates with this black guy in the Air Force. I played on the basketball team with somebody, a black guy, whatever, you know. And then I learned, and so I can sort of model through my own experience of transitioning from these kind of thinking to this kind of thinking there, and it gives them a chance to listen without feeling like they're being picked on or modeled. I did have a follow-up thing, Gloria.
Mhm.
Gloria is also an entrepreneur, has a licensed business, right? The Southern Center,
Oh, yes.
is that an
Mhm.
LLC or what?
It's an LLC.
An
Mhm.
LLC, a licensed business. So she's also an entrepreneur, you know. Well, as a business owner, as an organizational leader, if I did not want people in the work environment using ugly, racist, sexist, ethnic, derogatory comments, then how do I deal with that? One way is to say, listen, this is we're looking for an atmosphere of mutual respect. But if the people using that kind of language or saying things like that, that needs to be dealt with, and it's a tricky thing. Maybe you'd say,
really.
you're not meeting the expectations of our goal and our mission, and if you can shift around, I can see long-term employment. But if you're not, I'll be glad to help you find another place, but you can't talk and behave and do those things in this organization. And that's the way the Air Force got people to quit saying all those ugly, racial, sexist things that they didn't quit thinking them, but they quit saying them. And the number of personal assaults and fights and group clashes went down significantly. So to that extent, I mean, what they did there, they issued external control guidelines. And if you don't follow these, you don't fit in. You're going to be fired. So it's a tricky thing there. I remember Kay Mentley at Huntington Woods Elementary School in Wyoming, Michigan, a suburb of Grand Rapids, the very first Glasser Quality School. Well, the word got out on what they were doing, and people came from everywhere to see what they're doing. So part of what we're talking about here is modeling good kind of mutual respect for all people behavior. And then sometimes that's influential on others. And even as far back as the 1960s, when Glasser was the consulting psychiatrist at the Ventura School for Girls, my understanding is in the 7 years he was there, that, state corrections people track recidivism rates. And my understanding is that the recidivism rates for female juveniles that came out of the school, the Ventura School, went way down. They didn't repeat and go back in. And so then, of course, you have all the other facilities around the state. With some of them said, hey, can I come visit you and see what you're doing? So then there were others who say they must be cooking the books and lying and getting defensive too. So sometimes the well-doings of people, the modeling, the behavior catches on for other people, and there's an influence there too. Thank you.
Yeah, while Wendell was talking, my mind got to wandering, and I came up with a completely different question I need to talk to you about, Gloria.
Okay.
And that is, I know that I have a kind of understanding that in the LGBTQ community, the word choice can come up as a negative, that this is genetic, not choice. So what do you do about choice theory and their negative connotation to choice?
Well, see, I don't think that it is a choice, their sexual orientation. I
Me
don't think
either,
it's a
but,
choice.
and I agree.
So when
But
but
go ahead.
there are a few people on my team who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, and they have absolutely no problem with choice theory. They
Okay,
have
so
no problem.
the word choice doesn't set off the red flags for them
No,
or anything like
it
that.
hasn't to any of the people that I've mentioned it to.
I'm a part of the LGBTQ community. And I don't think it's necessarily a choice about the sexual orientation or the
Right.
gender identification for some individuals. But for me personally, I think choice theory comes in how you actually interpret what other people do or how you choose to live your life.
Okay, all right. And so the word itself doesn't impact in any way.
I can't speak for the whole group of individuals, but I would
But
say
for
for
you,
It does not.
For me. There we are.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's
It's,
all we
it's
can
hard
do.
'cause we can only speak
Yeah.
for ourselves, but like what the other woman was mentioning, I can't remember her name. How do you take how we can only speak for ourselves and then kind of
Really
elevate
good thing.
group in the framework and acknowledging, well, I might not experience that, but someone else might.
Mhm.
Well, I think that, that given,
Information.
given something that's there genetically, that was not a choice, the person still has a choice to act on them or not. There are people that choose to be celibate, quite a few of them. And probably there are a good many of them that are different kind of gender or sexual orientations, but they choose to be celibate. They choose not to couple or in relationships with them. So that would be where the choice would come in, and people have choice. But
I
it's
think
a good question, Lucy. Yeah.
yeah, a really good question, Lucy. And we're starting to our time is winding down.
Mhm.
I would love to invite you all to participate in our difficult discussions and diversities conversation. It is, if you go to the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory, you can actually sign up to participate in that conversation. And it would be awesome to have any or all of you to bring a topic if you like to discuss something specific that relates to diversity and choice theory. So we know that when we talk about diversity, we're not just talking about the black-white issue that exists in America. That's not just about that.
In the day and the time.
It is.
When's your next one?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's always on Saturday at 2 o'clock in Eastern time, and
The third Saturday of every month.
it's the third Saturday. Thank you, of each month.
So the next one will be August 20th. That's okay, August 20th,
Mhm.
right, will be the next one. And then for us, our next one is August 23rd at 12 noon. And Lucy, who's gonna be leading that one?
Oh, I wish I knew. It's in my office. Do you want me to
I
go
was
get it?
hoping you
Steve?
did. No, that's okay.
We made the
Um,
list, but I tell you what,
Yes,
we can send it out to everybody as sort of announcement later. How's that?
yeah,
It's not anybody that's on here, right?
There'll be enough time for people. We won't hold anybody to this. For people to give their own opinion about whether or not the human relations progress is going up, holding, going down.
Sure. Do we have time to just take a poll?
Oh,
sure.
Sure.
you want to do
So-
it in the,
Those who would like to share theirs, who have a choice.
So, do y'all want to
But-
raise your hand and say if you think it's going up? How
Yeah,
many?
you can just
progress
raise
is
your
going
hand.
up?
You're talking about the social connection going up?
We're talking about the progress of human relations
Progress of humans. Mhm.
versus
I think it's going up.
Jessica.
The evidence is the action that people are taking to try to change that going up with the Supreme Court decision, other things that are going on in the real world. Those are in direct opposition to relationships going up. The progress.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Brenda had her hand up. Brenda, do you want to share? You're muted if you're talking.
The assaults on Jewish people, the assaults on LGBTQ people, all of these things have gone up significantly. And so that doesn't go this way. We have things confounded by the COVID impact. I've run across people in my tennis world they seem to be a little bit more, they're not as, I guess maybe, but they call it having been cooped up and, and under stress or what have you. And there's still a choice. I still have a choice whether to be decent to other people, even if I'm having a bad day, that sort of thing, especially if I'm providing service of some sort. But boy, there's so many things that are pointing here and there and what have you.
Yeah,
So-
I
I
want
choose to be optimistic instead of pessimistic.
all
All right?
right.
And say that we're continuing an incline into,
All right. Bob
social-
is going to say something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're muted, Bob.
Bob, you're muted.
your microphone is muted, Bob.
Bob,
He can't
Bob,
hear
you're
you.
muted. Oh,
We'll have to call Sandy for help. Oh, there you
Okay. Don't we need to distinguish between a system and the people in it? There's a lot of stuff that people are doing, but there's a lot of laws that are in place that were never in place historically to protect people and to ensure equality and so on like that. But a lot of people violate these, but that's a different thing than a system.
you're right.
I'm wondering if people are almost creating new systems and that relationships, I think there's relationships that are inclining, they are going up. And I think those are that if nothing else, you look at it and you go, okay, so the people against abortion have been against abortion for many, many, many years. So all of this has now radicalized them in such a manner that they're tighter now than they were before. And they put their Supreme Court people in there and they continue to be tight. In the meanwhile, the people who are pro-choice, pro-abortion have now become tighter too. So I don't know, it's almost like a gang mentality. It's like, I'm gonna increase, it's almost like the love and belonging thing is gone completely awry. You look at it and you go, okay, so they're voting the party line. They're supporting this person and they're ostracizing somebody else. So there's something relationship driven in there. And I don't know how to label it, but there's definitely something that the relationships are increasing and are getting tighter, even though that relationship is against another relationship. And maybe that's the system that Bob's talking about. I'm not sure.
Well, Gloria, look what you've done. You've done such a great job with us today that we can't stop talking about it, even though it's time and we're about to run over. But we want to thank you for leading our first Reality Therapy Corner conversation. And we look forward to seeing everybody again at our next session. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you all.
Before you all
Thank you
leave,
so much.
before you all leave, can you put your location in the chat room? We have someone from the Middle East with us today. That would be awesome. I'll know to do that next time. Where
Okay.
y'all from? I just think it's cool to see where we're all from.
Mhm.
I'm from Bahrain.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thank
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing everyone next month and on diversity too. We got Georgia, Virginia, Moran, Philly, Louisiana, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania. I'm from Indianapolis.
I'm
Lucy, you're
Memphis.
from
Memphis.
Tennessee, New
Florida.
York, or North Buffalo's, New York. You guys are all wonderful. Thank you all for joining.
Come back next
I don't know
time.
who,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you for letting me
Thank
talk,
you.
ladies.
It's almost like an hour's not enough time, Gloria, with you. It never is enough time with you.
Third Saturday. All
Never
right.
give them all that you've got. Leave them wanting more.
Wanting more, right? I got a client at 1 o'clock, y'all. I gotta go.
Okay,
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you. See you. Goodbye.
Go off.
Yes, good to see you
Yes.
too.
Thank
Bye, Wendell.
you. Take care of. Goodbye.
Lucy, I'll give, oh, good.
And
I was
stop the
waiting.
recording.
Yeah, stop